Hi! How do I do intro videos? This is so awkward. Okay, that was me checking to see if my brother's car was parked outside, just to make sure that I'm like actually home alone and no one's gonna cringe at me for talking to a camera on my windowsill instead of doing my job. Hello, it's me, Maple Flakes. I normally don't make videos like this, and it's proving very awkward to sit in front of a camera and talk, but maybe we'll get over it. Who knows? So I normally don't make videos like this. I am a gamer, but recently I have been watching a lot of book talk videos and booktube recommendations. So starting 2020, at the end of 2023, I actually read quite a bit of books, and now that 2024 rolled along, I got really into it, and I have read 7 books in the month of January alone. Most of my friends are not book people, and I need an outlet. I need something to talk to about all these amazing books that I'm reading, because I can't be alone in this. Today, we're gonna go over the 7 books that I read in January. The first book that I read in January was actually a part of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I had read the first book in December, and oh my god, this series, I've finished all 3. So this is actually the first 2 books of January is in this series. So the first book being Once Upon a Broken Heart, the second book being A Ballad of Never After, which is on my Kindle, and the third book being A Curse for True Love. I actually forgot the title. And sorry that this is kind of lumpy. I spilled water on it because my dumbass was driving from Seattle to Vancouver at the time when I bought this book, and I bought a coffee, which then needed to be put on the coffee holder. So my water bottle that I had purposely loosened the lid because I'm driving, I can't, like, you know, unscrew the lid and drive at the same time. Forgot that I had done that, and I threw my water bottle on top of my book, thinking that it was a tightly sealed water bottle. It's never spilled before. until this happened. Anyways, I'm rambling. So about the books. This is a very fun series. It's like a fantasy romance YA book that follows a girl named Evangeline who falls in love. Actually, she was already in love. She's in love with a boy, and this boy is gonna marry her stepsister. And it starts feeling very Cinderella story-like. However, her stepsister is getting married to the boy, and she's just like, I don't want that, okay? I want him. He's mine. He's my boyfriend, not hers. So she goes and makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, who is a fate. And fates in this world are like, I want to say they're like gods, but their powers are kind of more limited. And you're not really sure what their powers are, but you just know that they're like stronger than your average human. Basically, she makes a deal with Prince of Hearts, and he basically says, okay, I'll save them, but you have to give me 3 kisses that I could call on you to use whenever I feel like it. And if you don't kiss them, you die. So she's just like, oh, but I'm in love with this boy. So she's like, oh, maybe not. I don't know who he's gonna want me to kiss. Is it gonna be some gross hobo? Whatever. I mean, he never makes her kiss a gross hobo, actually. Just princes and really hot dudes, so seems like a great deal to me. Anyways, that deal, if it essentially pulls her into this like world of like fairy tales and curses and intrigues, and you see all these other fates kind of having their own agendas, and like her just getting swept into this like whimsical, magical world of like fairy tales, and it's super cute. And the second book, man, I've been through some questionable relationships and some really bad breakups, but this book taught me what true heartbreak feels like. And man, was I fucking shattered. So highly recommend. 5 stars for, actually 5 stars for the second book, 4.5 on the third book, because the third book I felt like was just like wrapping everything up, and it was still good. There was some things that weren't quite answered in the final book, but who knows, maybe she's writing more and we'll figure it out later. But yeah, that was my first 2 books. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not used to this. I don't know how to make these videos, and hopefully the more I make them, the better I'll get at being more concise. But for now, it's gonna be a rambly video. So the third book I read, because I read 2 books from the series. The third book that I read is called One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I also got that on my Kindle, and it was a book that was, I was reading for a book club. I was riding on such a high from finishing the Once Upon a Broken Heart series that I did not think that this book was going to hit me as much. Like, I was like prepared that, like, you know, when you watch something really good, you're like, okay, the thing after this is not going to be as good. It was pretty good. It didn't take me to the same highs and lows that Once Upon a Broken Heart took me through, but it was still very gripping, still very interesting, and very fun to read. The 2 books are quite different in terms of setting, but there's like a similar vibe to them that I can't quite explain or put into words. One Dark Window follows a girl named Elspeth who actually has a monster living inside her brain, and basically she has to go help these like are they rebels? They're like aristocratic rebels, I would say, and they're trying to collect 12 cards that's supposedly going to save the world from the mist that is slowly engulfing their kingdom. And I don't know, it was a fun read. There was nothing about it that was like particularly like amazing. I thought the magic system was really cool. I love it when magic in a world has consequences and there's limits to what you can do in it because of like, you know, you could either like overuse it or like it'll make you mad. I really liked that about this book. It was really, really enjoyable to read, but when you think back on it, you're like, this is like the most cookie cutter storyline I've ever read, but you still love it. So another great read. I actually gave this a 5-star. So yeah, January, first 3 books were on point. I actually think I finished these 3 books within like the first week of January, which was crazy. And then after that, I read Piranesi, which was also a really good book. It was one of those books that I didn't realize how good it was until I've let it sit and I thought about it more. Piranesi is like an epistolary novel about a man who is living in this world with like a lot of rooms, and he's in this world with one other person who he sees once a week, and that other person, called the Other, which is awesome, basically has him searching for this like secret knowledge. And as he's sort of helping the Other do these things, he's starting to come to his own conclusions about the world and uncovering the mysteries behind it. And I can't say too much about it because it'll spoil it, but it's a very short read. It was like only 200 pages, but I thought it was really well done. The characters, this is my first time reading a book that has an unreliable narrator. And there was something about Piranesi that was just super charming, and you were just like, I know you're unhinged in some way and you're not quite there, but I love you. Yeah, I gave it, at first it felt like a 4-star read to me because it wasn't the easiest read for, you know, an ESL person like I am, but as you let it sit, it just gets better as you think about like everything that happens, how it unfolded, and like all the, just everything. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So moving on to our 5th book, which is Mexican Gothic. I actually borrowed it from the library and I didn't realize that the author was Canadian, which was really cool. She actually lives here in Vancouver. So Mexican Gothic is, it's really about this house, I feel like. It's set in like 1950s Mexico. Our main character, Noemi, who gets a letter from her cousin that's a little unsettling. The letter was basically like the ramblings of a madwoman and like saying that her husband might be poisoning her and how she needed somebody to come help her out, essentially. So because it's 1950s, women going to school was not a common thing, Noemi made a deal with her dad that if she went to go help her cousin, that her dad would pay for her schooling to be an anthropologist, archaeologist. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what she wanted to go to school for. So she goes to the 1950s countryside of Mexico and finds this like old dingy mansion on a hill covered in mist, and like the vibes are just like so gritty and sticky and just unsettling that I kind of had a hard time with the book sometimes because I was just like grossed out. Oh, also, before you read this book, please look at the content warnings, because I got pretty uncomfortable reading certain parts of it, and if, you know, there's certain things that tend to trigger you, I would probably look into that before reading. How do I summarize this book? This was like the first okay book for me in a while. I felt the vibes were immaculate, the plot was good. I liked that the romance was very like just dusted on. It wasn't like super obvious or out there. It was just like a tiny little dusting on top. But yeah, if you like kind of like the dark, scary, spooky vibes that are a little unsettling, this is a wonderful, wonderful book. The characters are very interesting. I really liked her main character. She is like confident and strong, but not annoyingly arrogant. And she's flawed, but like, I don't know, she just felt very real to me, and I really enjoyed getting to know her in this book. So yeah, I think I gave it a 4 stars, but I think it's actually like closer to a 4.5 for me. The 6th book that I read in January is this beautiful piece of literature that I didn't know that I needed in my life. We follow a boy who is in Canton, China. He was born there, but I guess the city was kind of dealing with a plague, and his mother had died from it, and he also had it. But then one day, this white man comes in and saves his life, and then whisks him away to England, gives him a new name, and teaches him English. And he teaches him Greek and Latin in order to basically put him into Oxford's Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. And throughout his life, he's kind of been by himself. So like going into Babel was like this dream, like life is good such scenario where he's making friends that are like him, also people of color, and he is being treated like he's this like important person to be trained to do important work of translating. Oh my god, I haven't even talked about the magic system in this book. So the magic system in this book is so freaking interesting. Basically, you have these silver bars that have translations written on them, usually in English because we're in England, so from English to another language. So when you hold these bars with these 2 translations on them and you speak the words out loud, whatever was lost in translations between the 2 words get manifested into the world around you. And I thought that the magic system was so freaking cool and so creative that I was like super excited to see like where it went. However, I felt like we didn't really get to see much of it until like the very end, like how these bars were actually used, like what their significance were in the world around you. It just felt like normal day 1830s England, and it really just felt like a vehicle for the story to make these people of color more valuable to the white British society. So we follow Robin throughout his life, from being a kid, being isolated, only ever speaking to grown-ups and his tutors, to all of a sudden going into a school with other people that are around his age, making friends with the people in his cohort, and living his life in university. And I think it really captures that like feeling of belonging and finding your people, but also having this like underlying feeling that the world isn't quite right. And I don't know, the themes in this book are very, very interesting. It talks about colonialism, racism, even touches on how certain groups of people might be discriminated against in one way, but don't realize how much their privilege is affecting them in other ways that they're not discriminated against. So it was a very thought-provoking book. There was that one little thing about how I wish the magic system came into play a little bit more. I wanted to see like how that changed the future and how like humanity would be, but yeah, I guess that wasn't really the point of the book. So kind of one little thing that I felt like it missed out on, but overall still very, very good. And then the last and final book I read was She Who Became the Sun, which is a library book that I borrowed and have returned now, so I don't have the copy. But this was the most mid book that I've read this year. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was really, it was a fun read, but there were moments where I was like, okay, I don't care. So She Who Became the Sun starts following a girl who's not named, and she is living in 1350s China, where they're kind of struggling through a famine. And during this time, women were seen way like lower than men. So on her brother's, it's just her dad, her brother, and herself. I think her mom had died, but I can't remember whether it's because of childbirth or if she just like died in other ways. I don't know if it was really that much touched upon, but I've blocked it out of my memory, so probably wasn't important for the story at all. But yeah, she basically just didn't have a mother. So her dad, on her brother's birthday, takes him to this fortune teller, and basically the fortune teller tells her brother that, Zhu, you are going to have this like great grand future for yourself, and that he was destined for greatness. And so the little girl was like, oh, that's really cool, what's mine? And then the fortune teller was just like, you've got nothing, girl. GG, go next. Like, maybe your next life you'll do a better job, but you have no future. However, one day their family gets attacked by bandits, and her father gets beat up, and since he was already so malnourished from being starved, he dies. And shortly after, it's just her and her brother. Her brother also dies because he didn't have that father providing for him. He kind of just gave up, really. So the little girl is just like, dude, what the fuck? You're supposed to be great. What the hell happened to that fortune? She's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna take your name and I'm gonna be great. I'll take your fate. So she goes off into the monastery and tries to live her life taking her brother's name and hopefully her brother's greatness. Now, this book has a lot of like really quotable bits that are very inspiring. Zhu is like a very resilient girl, and she like I always find like her point of view in the story was just so fun to read. It is told in two perspectives, and the other point of view, you're following a eunuch general who is technically like on the other side of this war that they're fighting, and so you get the two perspectives of like each side. However, I hated everybody on the general side. So Ouyang, I didn't care. I thought he was annoying. Essen was also annoying. Bao is also annoying. Like, I just didn't like the other perspective. But anytime we talked about Zhu, I was all in. I was like, yes, girl, you go do what you need to do to be this great, wonderful monk. At the end of it, I think I rated it a 3.5 star. And if it was just a story about Zhu, I think it would have been a 5-star read for me. Yeah, anyways, that was all the books I read. Hopefully this wasn't too long of a video. Thank you for letting me vent, and I hope to see you on whatever next video I create. Peace.